All right, we should be on the air right now. Welcome to the Pious Reflections Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Roberts. I'm just checking to make sure we've got a good feed. Looks like we do. All right, awesome. So tonight we are going to be playing some clips from the Charlie Kirk Memorial from yesterday. If you haven't seen it, I know some people didn't see it. The theme for tonight is going to be Do Not Be Afraid to Be Saints. And I have my John Paul II mug right here. My wife is not here tonight because she's off slaving away. I'm just kidding. And that's kind of a bad joke, actually, given some of the clips that we're going to be playing. But the mug that I have here says, Do not be afraid to be saints. She's working on the mug store that we are trying to get up and running. You can check that out at Saints and Thinkers, and you can buy your own John Paul II mug yourself and be inspired not to be afraid to be a saint. So, obviously, you want to be a saint. So, we're going to be talking about essentially 5 clips. There were tons of people yesterday that talked about this, that talked at Charlie Kirk's Memorial. If you're like me, I didn't really know much about Charlie until he died. He showed up in my feed. He, from time to time, I saw him on the Daily Wire guys with Michael Knowles. Michael Knowles is one of my favorite podcasters, so I watch him on a regular basis. And so that was really my interaction with him. But then, like pretty much everybody that I see in my social media feed, we suddenly realized, wow, this guy was pretty much running the country, and he was only 31 years old. But more than that, he was also super inspiring with his faith. Anyone who did any kind of ministry or anything like that was very impacted by him and his courage, especially knowing now that he was well aware of the death threats and things like that he was getting. But tonight, I just want to kind of be pretty casual. It's the middle of the week. I do not do this full time. If you want to support me, you can subscribe and comment and like and share this video. That would help me a lot. But I'm back on the mic largely because of Charlie Kirk's inspiration and to do what I can to help people in the faith. And that was one of the main themes of Charlie Kirk's memorial yesterday, specifically from his wife. She charged us to ensure that all these people out there that are coming into the faith as a result of his martyrdom, that they have people to help mentor them in the faith. So I am going to play some clips here tonight. We're going to start with Benny Johnson. If you don't know him, he's another podcaster. And he is, I'm going to get my switcher here set up right. Benny Johnson was somebody who, hold on, it's not connected. There we go. Whew, almost lost it there. Benny Johnson was a guy that I don't really follow either, and he got up there and he gave his testimony in the first little bit. So we're just going to jump back and forth here, watch some videos, and talk about it. If you have some ideas of other clips that you thought were really good, let me know in the comments section. And yeah, let's have some fun watching some videos about how awesome Charlie Kirk was. So let's get this going on here. All right, we got this. And we're going to play this clip right here. So this is Benny Johnson, and this is just an incredible story.
Charlie always had that revival energy, didn't he? When Charlie first met me, I was a degenerate loser. I'm still a loser, but I was addicted to alcohol. I had no wife, I had no kids, I had nothing going for me. After 10 years of work with Charlie Kirk, after his witnessing to my life, I have become a Christ-centered man. I am happily married to the woman of my dreams, sitting right there with our youngest son, who just turned 8 today, 8 months. And he's wearing ducks for Charlie's beloved Oregon Ducks today. That's baby Whitaker, in honor of Charlie.
So, that guy has a ton of followers right now. He is at, let me see here, Benny Johnson. Let's check out what his following is. He is at 3.9 million followers now. You can look at it on his Twitter page here. I mean, it's a ton, and obviously you guys are all watching these guys over here. But that guy was a nobody, like he said, and he had basically been ministered to and turned into the guy that he is because of Charlie Kirk. And there were story after story all over the internet now of all these people that Charlie Kirk helped, and we had no idea. And I think the thing that is that's very encouraging is the impact that Charlie had. You can have a major impact on people's lives, but there's also this kind of discouraging aspect that I'll get into a little bit later as we kind of talk about these more. But one of the themes that you're going to see is obviously the gospel is going to be presented quite a bit. But the other thing is that you're going to kind of see that it's not the gospel presentation that is most vanilla in the United States. It's a gospel that actually costs you something. And everybody gave a presentation of the gospel, including Don Jr., which is just crazy. I'm queuing it up right now. There we go. Like, watch this. This is nuts. It's funny, too, so this one will be some comedic relief.
I'm not widely known for being a sentimental guy. Anyone who's seen me on social media knows I'm far more likely to crack a joke or get myself in trouble for posting some grossly inappropriate memes than I am to shed a tear. I know this because I've even gotten the call from that guy a couple times. You know, Don, you're getting a little aggressive on social media, Don. Relax.
Pretty good impersonation.
But last week, when I received word that Charlie, who was like a little brother to me, had been assassinated, I was truly devastated. We all were. And we're here today to celebrate the way he lived his life and to remember the way he changed so many of ours. So I want to start where I know Charlie would want me to, with what was most important to him, and that was his relationship with Christ.
This is insane. Even watching it a second time, this is just nuts.
To say Charlie knew more about the Bible than me is an understatement, folks. It's like saying Donald Trump knows more about being president than Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris. No kidding. But when Charlie was asked in an interview how he'd want to be remembered, he said, "I want to be remembered for my courage, for my faith." And let me tell you guys, those were not empty words. Last week, Charlie joined a long line of courageous men and women who were martyred for what they believe. According to the book of Acts, the first martyr in the early Christian church.
Do you realize how crazy this is? My entire life, I was trying to explain this to my kids. My entire life, politicians would get up there and they would refer to Jesus in the most milquetoast, plain Jane like terms, like our creator, well, our savior. They would not say the name of Jesus because they were afraid to offend somebody. This broadcasted out to their estimating over 100 million people. And virtually every single person, I can't think of one, except for maybe Stephen Miller. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't think any of them did not give a gospel presentation. Well, Donald Trump. I mean, even Donald Trump, though. I think Donald Trump even got some gospel stuff in there. But it was a 5-hour-long memorial service, so it's kind of hard to remember anything. Anyway, we're going to keep going here. Hold on.
Was Stephen, who was stoned to death. And as Stephen was being killed, he said, "Behold, I see the heavens opened and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God." Now, there are many times in the Bible where Jesus is seated at the right hand of God, but this is the only time he's seen standing. And while the Bible isn't explicit about this, I like to think Jesus was standing to welcome Stephen, the courageous martyr, into heaven. And today that gives me great comfort, because 11 days ago, as a cowardly assassin crawled on his stomach to end Charlie's life on earth, I'm betting Charlie saw the Son of God standing tall to welcome him home.
And like every single person that got up there to try and speak was struggling to not shed tears on the stage. I mean, it was crazy stuff. And I'm not sure that this will ever happen again. When I was sitting there talking to my kids, were watching this, and with us, and as soon as my son heard the words Stephen, because his name's Stephen, he said, "Hey, that's like me." And there were just so many spiritual things going on in our house the whole time that we watched this event. And I think there's got to be some level at which people who were against Trump, or people who have been trying to basically talk as if this is all political. Christianity Today ran a cover story that said, Charlie Kirk dies preaching the MAGA doctrine or something like that. NPR ran a similar MAGA headline, which is not disingenuous, but it is also them just trying to not say what it was. I mean, Trump was completely eclipsed at this thing. I mean, if he thought at any point that he was elected because of the fact that he's Donald Trump and he just, was the best that ever happened to America, which, Charlie definitely thought Donald Trump was great. Donald Trump had to go stand in a room of 100,000 people, a crowd that he's never been able to draw, at least not that, well, maybe he's drawn some stuff that big, but 100,000 people came out for essentially a guy who was going around registering college students to vote. This is it's just unbelievable. The thing, though, that you will see as a recurring theme, and a lot of people are talking on social media who was their favorite gospel presenter and those kinds of things. But as somebody who grew up in the era of seeker-friendly churches, it was very frustrating to be a college student in the seeker-friendly movement, because no one wanted to talk about the fact that it costs you something to be a Christian. Now, that I'm a Catholic, that's everywhere. You walk into any Catholic church and it's well, this guy died and had his head cut off. This guy had his eyes plucked out. This girl was, they tried to behead her 3 times and they couldn't, but she was struck 3 times. That's Saint Cecilia, apparently. She was struck 3 times and bled out of her neck over 3 days. This entire, in fact, the Catechism of the Catholic Church says that the way to holiness passes by the cross. But evangelical Christianity, and there were some speakers there that gave half of the gospel, which was Jesus dies for your sins and he loves you, and all of that is true. But that's only half of what the gospel teaches. The gospel teaches that you got to love Jesus to the point of death. Like you have to be willing to, just as he gave up his life for you, you have to be willing to give your life up for him. Not in the salvific sense, because you're not saving Jesus. But if you want what he offers, you have to give him your life. In other words, salvation is a free gift, but it's going to cost you everything. And J.D. Vance definitely hits this home, but as we'll see, Erika Kirk is much more pointed on this topic. So let me bring up this stuff again.
In the wake of his death, we have seen some of the very worst parts of humanity. We have watched people slander him. We have watched people justify his murder and celebrate his death. I know that this makes you angry just as it has made me angry. But it is easy in these moments to see only the worst of our fellow man. I found myself wishing that I could pick up the phone and talk to my friend and ask him for his advice and his counsel, to ask him how to respond to such hate and the souls from which that hate springs. But I can't call my friend because he was murdered for speaking the truth. I can only guess at what he might say and what he would encourage me to do. And here's what I think. I think he would encourage me to be honest that evil still walks among us. Not to ignore it for the sake of a fake kumbaya moment, but to address it head on and honestly as the sickness that it is. But I also think he would encourage me, he would encourage all of us to focus on the good. He would encourage us to remember that for every hateful voice celebrating his murder, there are 1,000 people mourning it and fighting for his legacy every single day. He would tell us to commit ourselves to telling the truth and to fight for that truth each and every single day. He would tell us to talk about God's love and the fact that that love applied everybody across the whole human family. Charlie suffered a terrible fate, my friends. We all know it. We all saw it. But think, it is not the worst fate. It is better to face a gunman than to live your life afraid to speak the truth. It is better to be persecuted for your faith than to deny the kingship of Christ. It is better to die a young man in this world than to sell your soul for an easy life with no purpose, no risk, no love, and no truth. Christ told us in the Gospel of John, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world.
Yeah. This is a very different presentation of the gospel. It's the Passion of Christ. The whole theme was, are you going to stand up for the truth? You know, when J.D. Vance says that there's still evil that walks among us, the Bible tells us that it is a sin for a man to know the right thing to do and not do it. And there's a lot of Christians out there that are acting like this isn't a big deal. And if you're in like group threads or group chats or whatever, I'm very thankful that I have family that I can, talk about these things with. But at the same time, there are other threads that I was a part of that said nothing, acted like nothing was going on. And that's a really bad sign. When JFK was assassinated, I don't think people were just like quiet about it. I don't think that people didn't talk about it. I don't think that when they went to work, nobody talked about it. We talked the other day that cowards are the first ones to be thrown into hell. They're the first ones. Unbelievers are second, by the way. And one of the things that I want to point out here before we keep moving on, because it kind of sets it up for Erika Kirk, is that the idea that you can just pray a prayer and now no matter what you do for the rest of your life, no matter what sin you commit, you're still going to heaven. Well, on the one hand, I hope those people are right. It just seems to me that there's no way for them to prove that. There's no way for them to prove that. Especially considering many of the Christians that preach that kind of a gospel don't believe that saints can come and tell them that. Say, yep, I was a murderer, died on my last breath, and, never repented again, but I'm here. The reality is that if that person is wrong, meaning if you can just pray a prayer and you're just saved, well, if they're wrong about salvation, then they're leading a lot of people astray. But if the people who are more cautious about the fact that they should work out their faith with fear and trembling, that they should take heed that the words that we speak are going to be the words that we're judged by, that there are sins that lead to death. There are plenty of examples of Jesus condemning people who did not stand for him. Another passage is that we weep with those who weep and we rejoice with those who rejoice. There's a large, essentially entire conservative movement was in this stadium mourning the loss of a man who, by his death, basically took over the GOP and made it super pro-life and apparently like the leading evangelistic tour bus. But yet there's still Christians who act like this isn't a big deal, or act like, well, he's just a political figure, or, we don't want to make people feel guilty for not supporting this the way that BLM made people feel guilty for not supporting them. It's totally different. Totally different. Because BLM represents Marxism, victimization, and violence, because they went and rioted and protested to the tune of $2 billion in damages. And Charlie Kirk spawned prayer meetings across the country and world. And by the way, BLM spawned riots around the world. But like J.D. Vance said, there's still evil among us. And one of the reasons why there is because there's a lot of cowards in the church. There's a lot of cowards who are in leadership that don't want to tell their pastors that they need to start speaking out against the evil that's in the country, that's in their churches. There's a lot of Christians out there who are saying that they're going to peddle this soft gospel nonsense. You're baptized into the death of Christ. Jesus says you got to take up your cross. There is nothing easy about the gospel. And that sets us up for the next clip. which is Erika Kirk, and we'll come back to her, but this one was kind of like honorable mention. And Erika Kirk is going to get the majority of the playtime, but we're going to go through Marco Rubio before we get to her entirety. But here's her comments on the at the very beginning of her talk about how Charlie kept a journal. And this is right after everybody has stood up. Like, there's a whole bunch of people who dedicated their life to Christ. Praise the Lord. Pastor Rob McCoy did a great job at the altar call. And but Erika Kirk made sure that these people understood that Charlie did not believe in an easy gospel. At least that's how I read it. And she definitely doesn't believe in an easy gospel. And so I'm going to play this. There's a little bit of a introduction here because I just think that it's really beautiful how she came on stage. And I think it's worth every minute to watch. In fact, I'm going to take myself off here for a second.
Please give a warm welcome to Mrs. Erika Kirk.
I mean, how do you do that? I had a friend who was there, said the energy was just nuts. Just watch this part. Watch her. You're going to see her praying to Jesus to give her strength. It is absolutely unreal. Also, she is wearing the necklace that was taken off of Charlie's body. When he died.
One day I hope you look back and realize it was the most important decision of your life.
So she's talking about the fact that everybody has stood up. So just a little context here. People who stood up and said, I want to follow Jesus. That's who she's talking to. She's saying, I hope that you will look back and see that this is the most important decision of your life. And then she's going to tell us a little bit more about what she believes is Charlie's view and her view of what it means to be a Christian for these new believers and those that will disciple them.
Because it is. All of you who are already believers, it is your job to shepherd these people. Do not take that lightly. Water the seed of their faith. Protect it and help it grow. Every day as Charlie rode into the office, he would go through his contact list, and I know there's many of you who were impacted by this. He would go through his contact list and send Bible verses for the day. He knew that faith was a habit. The more you live it, the more it grows. But know this too. The seed has only just been planted. The enemy will tempt you the most in a time like this one. God will always be there for you, but you must choose to mark your soul again and again in the direction of Christ. pray again, read the Bible again, go to church next Sunday, and the Sunday after that, and break free from the temptations and shackles of this world. Being a follower of Christ is not easy. It's not supposed to be. Jesus said, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. He said he would be persecuted. He said we would be persecuted. And Charlie knew that and happily carried his cross all the way to the end. And I want all of you to know, while Charlie died far too early, he was also ready to die.
And that pretty much is a very powerful description of the Catholic understanding of perseverance. I don't know how Catholic Erika Kirk is. There's a bunch of stuff going around saying that she is. Apparently, the necklace that she took off the body of her husband was a St. Michael the Archangel medal in a New York Times article. But that is what we do as Catholic Christians. We go back to confession. We go back to the Bible. We go back to prayer. I mean, we're told to pray all the time. We've got the rosary. Like, she's not wrong that there is going to be that this is one of the hardest times in our lives to be Christians. And the news media is not backing down. There is, and neither are the left-wing activists and their representatives. We are quite literally in a fight for our freedom and our faith. People are trying to terrorize you into not telling the truth, not talking about your faith, whether that be at work, whether that be in your families. We are a generation of Christians who might not be able to just hide as a Christian. Like, we might actually have to bleed for our faith. And one of the reasons why I think that's the case is because the theme of this Charlie Kirk Memorial was not one of, just like kumbaya, kind of like we love it's just going to be easy, man. I mean, they talked and preached love a lot, but they taught and preached love that was going to cost us something. Mainly, hey, the fight's not over yet. If you decide to be peaceful and preach the truth and the gospel, be inspired, because this is what Jesus wants. And if he's pleased with Charlie, he'll be pleased with you. We just cannot keep saying that the gospel is an easy life. It's just not an easy life. Anyone who's telling you that you can just live, a gospel-centered life and not have to, crucify your will, just isn't telling you the true gospel. Yes, Jesus paid it all, but he expects us to give him our entire life. Our entire life. Anyway, we're going to watch two more here, and then we'll get back to Mrs. Erika Kirk here. This next one is Marco Rubio. And I'm just telling you, like, the Catholics brought it, man. Like, even the Protestants on X were like, man, we're really preaching the gospel hard. I know other Protestants did a great job, Frank Turk and others, and the pastor, Rob McCoy, someone who Charlie called America's pastor. But people I was talking to were like, did you hear Rubio? Did you hear him? Anyway, We're going to hear him right now.
And let me close with this. How do you remember? This is a memorial service. It's to honor him. How do you best remember it? I'll take the liberty of saying what I think we can best do. Look, I think he had a tremendous impact on young Americans in general. I think he had a very special and direct impact on young men in this country. That's one of the greatest developments I've seen. It's been very positive. I think we remember him for that. I think we remember him for constantly saying, you want to live a productive life, get married, start a family, love your country. These are powerful messages. But I hope many who are watching, I imagine there are people watching here tonight that didn't know much about Charlie Kirk until 11 days ago. Maybe they were disengaged from politics. Maybe they were partially engaged. I hope one of the things they take from this is that the movement Charlie Kirk led and started and gave fuel to was about politics, but not only about politics. It was deeper. It was broader. And I would say that, taking the liberty, but I'm confident he would agree, one of the things he wants us to take away from this, from all of this, is the following. His deep belief that we were all created, every single one of us, before the beginning of time, by the hands of the God of the universe, an all-powerful God, who loved us and created us for the purpose of living with him in eternity. But then sin entered the world and separated us from our Creator. And so God took on the form of a man and came down and lived among us. And he suffered like men. And he died like a man. But on the third day he rose unlike any mortal man. And to prove any doubters wrong, he ate with his disciples so they could see, and they touched his wounds. He didn't rise as a ghost or as a spirit, but as flesh. And then he rose to the heaven, but he promised he would return. And he will. And when he returns, because he took on that death, because he carried that cross, we were freed from the sin that separated us from him. And when he returns, there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and we will all be together, and we are going to have a great reunion there again with Charlie and all the people we love. Thank you, and God bless you.
It's just crazy, man. I mean, it's just crazy. And it really does say something about you if you were just ignoring football, or just watching football on the weekend. I mean, this is your country. It's just crazy. It still blows my mind. 5 hours. You had the entire presidential cabinet up there preaching the gospel. The entire time. This has never happened in my entire life. And I just don't think that people realize that this, I know it's cliche, but like it's actually a turning point. I mean, that's what it is. Little bit of an honorable mention here. I mean, Elon Musk was there. He almost starts crying. Like, watch this clip here.
Why was he killed?
He was killed because his words made a difference. Because he was showing people the light. And he was killed by the dark.
Thank you, sir. Why was he killed?
I mean, it's just crazy. I still can't get over it. I mean, there's memes going around of Charlie like bringing Trump and Musk back together as like an angel. They shook hands at the thing. I don't know, man. Like, if there's going to be a person who's a saint that wasn't fully in the church, man, Charlie's getting close. But yeah, it just still blows my mind. The last 3 clips that we have, and then we'll shut it down for the night, is from Erika Kirk's speech. And the first one is that I want to share is she talked about men being leaders, and this was very good.
A man who leads so that they can serve. To all the men watching around the world, accept Charlie's challenge and embrace true manhood. Be strong and courageous for your families. Love your wives and lead them. Love your children and protect them. Be the spiritual head of your home. But please be a leader worth following. Your wife is not your servant. Your wife is not your employee. Your wife is not your slave. She is your helper. You are not rivals. You are one flesh working together for the glory of God.
Just incredible. And she's going after the toxic masculinity right there, man. And the guys who are saying, oh, it'd be great if you could just marry like a whole bunch of people. And Charlie actively preached against like promiscuous lifestyles, on campus, and constantly being asked by young men, like, what's a meaningful life to live? And I do have to say that, like, one of the reasons why this struck me so much was I was a college athlete, and man, I got mocked so hard for my faith. It was absolutely crushing. One time, I just tell this story because I don't think people realize what they took from these college students. It got so much worse to be a Christian on a college campus. I talk to college students sometimes when they're at church or whatever, or their parents, and hearing what they have to go through is just absolutely insane. And, I even have like family members who have college students who are having to deal with the like pronoun stuff in athletic sports management classes and stuff. And they're having to figure out ways to find different professors. And when I was a college student many, many moons ago, it was public university, and I got made fun of by coaches, D1 coaches that are out about for my faith in front of the whole team. There were times when I finally found a really good Baptist ministry, college student ministry. And I can remember one time being asked to come over to this family's house. They were Clay and Tina. I don't know if they're watching, but if they ever see this, that'd be pretty cool because they made a big impact on my life. In fact, funny story, they called me once to see if I wanted to do a youth ministry thing, and I was no longer a Baptist, and so that was a funny conversation. But doesn't mean that God doesn't use all believers in every believer's life. But when I one of my most profound memories was realizing that it had been months since somebody had prayed for a meal. Like, I was always the one praying. I was the one praying for the team. I was praying for meals. I was praying by myself. And I was around a lot of people that didn't know how to pray, so I was just always the one praying. And I would have really benefited from something like TPUSA, like 100%. And I still did stand strong, but it was absolutely soul-crushing. And to give you an idea, I went over to get some pizza with Tina and Clay, and walked in and they said, "Would you be willing to pray?" And I stopped and I asked them, "Actually, I'd really appreciate it if you would pray." And I started to cry at their table because I realized in that moment that it had been months since I had heard somebody else pray. It was just a very difficult season, and I can't imagine what it's got to be like for you guys as college students on a campus. But Charlie Kirk would have definitely emboldened me, and he was clearly emboldening other students to stand strong for what they believed, to seriously investigate the Christian faith. I mean, apologetics has just completely taken a back seat now because of people like Charlie tying in Christian morality to politics and and then also telling people you got to have courage to be a Christian. Well, courage is attractive. I mean, and everybody should know that now. I mean, I have not talked to anyone who has watched Erika Kirk stand up there and say, "I don't want to be like her." There's not a man I've talked to. Well, there's men I probably know, but there's not a man I've talked to that would say, "I don't want to be like Charlie Kirk." Now, I'm sure that some people I know don't want to be like Charlie Kirk, whether they know it or not, but courage is contagious. That's one of the reasons why Jesus is such an inspiration. But we come to the last two videos here. Women, she also gives a charge to women. So here's her charge to women. This is really good.
Women, I have a challenge for you too. Be virtuous. Our strength is found in God's design for our role. We are the guardians. We are the encouragers. We are the preservers. Guard your heart. Everything you do flows from it. And if you're a mother, please recognize that is the single most important ministry you have. In our home, because Charlie traveled a lot, we tried to travel with him where we could. But I made sure that when Charlie returned from work, it was his sacred landing place, away from the worries of the world. I didn't make him feel guilty for being away too long or too much, or getting home too late. I always told him, home is here for you, and it'll be ready for you. And I made it into this place where he wanted to be as soon as possible when he was on the road. There was no keeping score between us. We were a team, working together for the same mission. I never wanted to be the one standing between Charlie and the task that God prepared for him, had set for him. And I knew Charlie would always do his best to help me with the same. My marriage with Charlie was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I know it was the best thing that ever happened to him as well. He wanted everyone to experience that joy. And that's what's so beautiful about God's design for marriage, is that everyone can.
Just a little bit of commentary. Note that she did not leave him love notes. She talks about this. There's a lot of people talking about the fact that Charlie would leave love notes before he would go some places. You know, like, he didn't even sleep in the same bed with her the night before he left. He was so excited to go to the college campuses because his tour was just starting, and he knew it was going to be huge and it was going to be a great time, and he had been planning for it. Apparently, the pilot heard him say as he left this is from the New York Times article interviewing Erika Kirk, that he said, today's going to be a great day. And there's something here for women, I think, that you've got to understand. Not all men are this way, but what Erika Kirk describes, and we'll hit the men too, but what Erika Kirk describes in that clip is a woman who clearly has a desire for her husband to rest where they live, and a lot of respect for her husband. And I think that is not the only thing. Like, they both obviously had courage, but they both also had a love for God, and they both had a love for people to know the truth that would set them free. And I think that one of the reasons, because, I mean, this isn't like a knock, so don't take it this way, but if you walk, like there's not a marriage book out there that's going to tell you take on a career that causes you to be gone from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night, and essentially try and love your spouse via text message and notes and travel with each other when you can. But they obviously had a strong marriage. And the reason why it seems like to me is because they were totally 100% united in their love for God. And what I mean by that is that they were willing to lose the other, it seems to me, as long as they were doing God's will. And I was just telling my brother this earlier today. I've been reflecting a lot on Mary. And, you know, it's really interesting to realize that as you go through and you reflect on the suffering of Mary, that her suffering is oftentimes not physical. Like, in what I mean by that is, like, there's never a time where she's attacked or bleeding because somebody, you know, struck her. You know, she wasn't stoned, she wasn't whipped. She did not suffer in the same exact way as Christ suffered. But the church teaches us that both Christ and Mary suffered. And there's a whole rosary. A lot of people don't know this. There's a whole rosary called the Seven Sorrows Rosary. I highly recommend that you go and check it out, because it's going to make a lot of this stuff that I'm saying right now make a lot more sense. But in it, each of the seven sorrows is like, you know, the sword that shall pierce your heart. You know, when she's talking to Simeon in the temple when they present Christ, she's told that her son is going to be a contradiction. They then have to flee to Egypt. They don't know where they're going. We have no idea how they got lodging there. It just doesn't tell us. It just fled to Egypt. She's got to watch her son die. She's got to watch him carry the cross. All of this stuff, she is literally in spiritual torment for a large portion of her life. And I think you see that on Erika on that stage. She's spiritually tormented. But man, if there was ever a woman that looked like she was walking the path of Mary in terms of suffering, it really looks like Erika Kirk is doing it, at least for now. But even for men out there, you know, like, so much of our life as middle-class men is just a spiritual suffering. Am I going to be able to take care of my kids? Am I going to be able to make the bills? Am I going to be able to do these things? It's not this physical attack on us. And sometimes I think that's what kind of drives us a little wonky, because we have this desire to go and make a big difference, at least some of us. And we know that you can, that you can. But in order for you to do that as a married man, you've got to be united. But like Erika Kirk said, you also have to be a great leader. And Charlie Kirk took care of his wife. And when you take care of your wife, And Charlie Kirk said this, you should be the last one to benefit from any work that you do. Your wife and kids should be the first to benefit. I can tell you right now, confession, I have definitely rewarded myself sometimes before I rewarded my family. And that's wrong. But this is the kind of stuff that Charlie's having an impact on people with. He's really causing them to reflect on their conscience and their life. Because I think to a certain extent, we all know that it's pretty bad right now. It's pretty bad. And we want to make sure that we're ready to take a stand for our faith if God were to ask us. I mean, all of us are standing there saying, "Here I am, Lord, send me now. Send me." Well, it could be a lot harder, especially if that decision ends up leading you to, have to watch your wife from heaven give a speech like this on forgiveness.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men just like the one who took his life.
This is the number one clip, by the way, in case you couldn't tell.
That young man, on the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love. Love for our enemies and love for those who persecute us. The world needs Turning Point USA. It needs a group that will point young people away from the path of misery and sin. It needs something that will lead people away from hell in this world and in the next.
And that is pretty much, what are you supposed to say? There's just no way that we're out of the woods yet. You're going to need Jesus to make it through whatever else is coming down the pipe from our political situation. Even now, you go online, Jimmy Kimmel's getting put back on the air. The left continues to spin this. They completely ignore the fact that she forgave the shooter, from what I can tell. They do not want Christianity to retake the roots of this country. And the thing to keep in mind in all this, and that I'm trying to keep in mind, is what I named this episode, Do Not Be Afraid to Be Saints. There's a great quote in a book, The Woman Who Is Poor. I highly recommend it. It inspired Jacques Maritain, great philosopher, who ended up inspiring the human rights laws that the UN uses. But he also inspired Pope Paul VI, who wrote Humanae Vitae. And in the end of that book, the line that struck Jacques Maritain was this, and it's the last sentence of the book, and it's all about this woman who is beautiful and poor, and she's surrounded by Christian hypocrites, like the most vile Christians that you will probably ever meet in the pages of a book. And she stays steadfast the whole time. And the last words that she says after she's lost everything, but she's impoverished, so how could she lose any more? But she does. Somehow the author makes you realize, like, yeah, you can still lose more. And at the end of the book, the last line in that book is, the worst tragedy in life is to not be a saint. And the other subtext there is that to be a saint requires suffering. And suffering comes when we stand for the truth, when we decide that we're going to go out and we're going to live our faith, and we're going to tell people what we really think, and we're going to allow the church, the truth to divide against those who are with Christ and those who are not. And lastly, I would just say this. There is great, great, great grace that comes through the lives of those outside the church, and you saw all of that on display at the Charlie Kirk Memorial. But I am convinced, especially after reading the stories of the saints, the Catholic saints specifically, of dark times, the church's sacraments and prayers and practices are superior to any other kind of practice you could have. They prepare you for suffering. They prepare you for whatever cross God has for you. And that's why tomorrow I will be leading a rosary online, so make sure you subscribe and comment, and I will be taking us through what's called a Bible-based rosary. Not that the rosary is not biblically based, but it's a great way for anyone, whether they're Catholic or Protestant, to start praying the rosary. And I can tell you right now, if you want to be Christ-like, pray the rosary. It's just, people have said that since becoming Catholic, I've changed. I have prayed the rosary for my friends, family, and enemies every day for the last 2 years. And it changes your life. It just changes your life. If you don't believe me, try it for 30 days and tell me how much you love your family and your friends, and how badly you want them to be close to Christ. Just pray it for 30 days. I guarantee you, if you pray the rosary for 30 days, you will be more Christ-like, and you will love your Bible more. So that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. But at the end of the day, I'm going to echo John Paul II. I'm going to thank Charlie for his life. Thank you, Turning Point USA and Mrs. Erika Kirk, for your great and awesome testimony. And I just really hope that we all stand strong and continue to preach and evangelize the world. I'm going to do it from my basement, Lord willing. And hopefully I won't have to just do it from my basement at some point. Hopefully this channel will grow and we'll be able to do it out and about and join everybody out in the world trying to do it. But I can't do that unless you subscribe and comment and do all those things. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. It looks like we had a good amount of people watching again. So I really appreciate that. And thanks again. And don't forget, keep thinking.